Alrighty guys, here we have another limited banner and obviously another Shiju pull video. But before we actually go into that part of the video, I have to make a few slight discussions about my videos. So as you guys have realized, this time around we're going to start this limited banner on the 24th, whereas per usual we should be starting this banner at like the 29th or the 30th of April, because it's usually like 1 or 2 days before the CN limited banner. So now it's obviously that we are 1 week ahead of, well, what we usually do have. So my guess is that we might be speeding up a bit to try to catch up a little. Maybe not fully catch up to CN. I'm not sure about that, but maybe we're trying to pace things up a little bit. So obviously, before this, I would be like, oh, well, you know, if you really just want to pull, just pull anyway. And that is still the case. It's just that I think my recommendations actually make a bit more, you know, sense now that things might be a bit tighter from now on. And also, I think you guys have seen the whole topic recently about the month that we, the gap that we have, the 6-month gap between us and CN. And I think like, who was it, Renegade, who made the whole video talking about the gap, and there was a lot of discussions on, you know, mostly one-sided about a lot of people don't like catching up because they want the 6-month gap to, you know, get more intel. I don't really want to take a side on this topic on this video, but I will just say that if you like it, no matter if you like it or not, it is gonna happen, and it might not happen. It might just be like, oh, we'll speed up to like 1 month late or something, and which is still plenty of time to know our operators to decide if we want to pull or not. Maybe that would be a thing, or maybe we'll just catch up to CN like in 2 years. I have no idea what's going to happen because I don't work for Eurostar nor Hypergriff. So that is that. That out of the way, I think now we can talk about the banner itself. So I would highly recommend everyone to pull this banner, but only for Lappland. Vulpisfoglia is one of those operators that is a bit harder to recommend though, and I'll talk about why that is once we go into the actual kit of the operator. So that being said, let's start and take a look at the operators. So first of all, let's take a look at Vulpisfoglia, because I recommended you guys not to pull for her. So I think I better explain myself before I get a lot of hate, because, you know, she is Switzerland's mother after all. So Vulpisfoglia is a pioneer. So other pioneers you guys would know about would be operators like Texas, Siege, Saga, Tail, and so on. And the usual thing about these type of operators is that, well, we don't really use them as much anymore, like from the beginning where we had Siege a lot, and then when Myrtle came around and then Bagpipe, the whole Bagpipe plus Flag Bearer system started kicking in, so we just don't use Pioneers anymore. And then later on we got introduced to Agents and then Ines, which even beat out Flag Bearers in some sense, in my opinion. Well, I wouldn't say beat out, because their DP regeneration for Black Flag Bearer is still superior in most situations. It's just that Ines, especially operators like Ines, is just make things a lot more faster. And Ines had so much utility on her hands as well that makes her really hard to replace. So obviously she already has a downside there. Looking from the stats, you can see that she's actually a more damage focused pioneer as well. On the other hand, that would also mean that she is squishier. And then the thing about her module is that her module is the module where whenever the Vanguard blocks enemies, they will get attack and defense. So in my opinion, I would really like to give her the Texas one, which decreases her DP cost by 4, because as you guys can see, I have pot 1 and she's now 14 DP cost, and a lot of stages don't even give you 10 DP nowadays, or even like at best 10 DP. So 14 DP to place down your first Vanguard is kind of heavy. So in terms of just how easy it is to place her down, to ask her to then fend off enemies is kind of a bit harder than your other operators, your other Vanguards. So that out of the way, let's talk about her kit. So her first talent is that the first time she deals damage to an enemy, within 10 seconds, Vulpisfoglia will deal an additional 30% of her attack as arc damage to the enemy. Now, with module to level 3, that will make it up to 40%. But in general, I don't really think that you should be leveling your module just for this, because you're dealing 10% extra attack as arch damage, which isn't that well, because, you know, don't forget there is still a thing called resistance, so it gets decreased significantly. And then the second talent is that whenever she's on the field, natural DP regeneration is increased by 10%. And if she hasn't taken damage for 4 seconds, she will recover 4% or up to 5% of her HP per second at pot 5. So I want to talk about her talents a little bit. The first talent is obviously one of those talents where you're increasing her damage and then just allow her to just get rid of the enemy ASAP. So it kind of makes her early lane holder kind of a situation. Obviously, that is included with her second talent, where if she doesn't take damage, she will recover HP. So that kind of makes her somewhat semi of a lane holder. So that's fine. My issue is with her second talent. So as I mentioned, she increases the natural DP regen by 10%. What that means is that, as an example, if you're in IS and the natural DP regeneration is halved because you got some cursed collectible, that means with her, your DP regeneration is now 0.55. So 10% above 0.5. Usually you would think, oh, well, if it's just 0.1, if she just increased natural DP regen by 0.1, that would be way better, right? Because in that situation, your DP regen rate would be 0.6 instead of 0.55, or in some worse scenarios, like in CC, where you have minus 75% DP regeneration rate sometimes as a tag, that becomes 0.25 per second plus 10%. So you're only getting like 0.275 DP per second instead of 0.35 if it was plus 0.1 per second. So you see how big of a difference that plus 10% versus plus 0.1 makes? And that is my biggest issue. I feel like they're deliberately making this stat worse in more situations. Because obviously in most situations, you'll just be getting 1 DP regen per second. But making it 0.1 wouldn't really affect those more natural, most situations. But it will improve her in more difficult situations, make her more usable. But they went the other way, which I think is them doing it on purpose. So that's that. And like I said, you're really trying to combine the first talent and then the second talent, using her as more of a lane holder-ish kind of a role, and then generating DP at the same time, looking at just the first talent and the second talent combined. So that part I think isn't bad. My issue is only the 10% natural DP regeneration. And that's about it for her base kit, her talents. Next, let's take a look at her skills. So her skill 1 is that upon activation, her next attack will deal extra 290% of her attack as arch damage and gain herself 1 DP. And this skill can be charged for 3 times at M3 as well. And it will cost 4 SP, and she will gain an initial SP of 8. So you'll get 2 charges at the moment you drop her down. So obviously the biggest downside of this skill is that you need a constant stream of enemy coming towards her for her to use her skill. And even then, it's like 1 DP every 4 seconds. Whereas if you use other pioneers, you can just put them down in the back and ignore them, and they'll just keep generating DP over and over again. You don't need to bother with them, and you don't need enemies coming towards them, so you don't have to take the risk of them getting killed by enemies. So obviously it's not really worth leveling this skill, and I don't think it's a good skill at all. I think they probably could have just went with a normal DP regen skill and I would have been fine with it, but they didn't, so that is that. Now her skill 2, upon activation she will immediately gain 7 DP and deal up to 300% of her attack as arch damage to surrounding 6 enemies. Now, when hitting the target, she will slow them for 5 seconds, and if the enemy is already slowed, she will stun them for extra 5 seconds. You can charge this skill twice, and the skill will cost 20 SP at M3, and you will get a initial SP of 20. So this is kind of a skill where you would use like kind of a control skill if you look at it from that sense. But first of all, you have to remember that a lot of enemies are resistant or ignores stun to begin with, so you'll have to think about that. Second of all, it takes 20 seconds to charge, so if you really want to use this skill to stun, you'll have to wait 40 seconds for that. So take that as you will. This skill is interesting and has a pretty good range. It's the same range as a Lord operator, so 3 tiles in front of her and then the 2 sides, like the 2 side tiles next to her. So it's a pretty interesting range, and I would say that if the SP issue is solved, this skill could be much better, but the total SP needed to get the stun, 40 SP for a 5-second stun, just really isn't worth it for me. So I probably wouldn't raise this operator just for this extra bit of control, especially you're not really getting the benefit of, you know, skill 3, because skill 3 is really the key design where her talent meets her skill makes everything better, whereas this skill doesn't really work together with her skill with her talent, in my opinion. So this skill is just a pass for me as well. Skill 3, she will immediately gain 9 DP upon skill activation and will only cost 18 SP instead of 20, and she will gain one extra attack range, increase her attack by up to 110%. Her attack speed will get increased by 180 and then gradually falls down to 0 after 10 seconds, so 18 attack speed per second. And then she will attack all the enemies that she can block, so she will be blocking 3 and hitting 3 at the same time, and every time she attacks she will stun the enemy for 0.2 seconds. With all of that combined, oh, and by the way, if she kills an enemy during her skill duration, which is 10 seconds, when the skill ends, she will go into camouflage state until the next time she activates her skill. So that's the purple line down below. So obviously this skill is her key skill in my opinion. So first of all, let's just imagine her getting more range, right? Getting more range and increased attack means that she will get a lot more distance, a lot more time to kill the enemy, especially with her first talent, getting her extra 30% or 40% of her attack as arch damage, allowing her to deal more damage within the first 10 seconds, by the way. 10 seconds for talent, 10 seconds for skill 3. I think it's a perfect match. And then if she kills an enemy, she will go into camouflage state, which stops her from being attacked by not like range enemies. And remember, her second talent is that if she doesn't get hit within 4 seconds, she will regenerate 4% of her HP per second. So camouflage and second talent also works perfectly together. Now, in theory, because of the increased attack speed and the 0.2 second stun, what you will see is that she will be able to stun a lot of enemies and stop them from even attacking her to begin with. And that will also greatly help with her survivability. It's only till like the later part of her skill where she loses a lot of the attack speed, and then the enemy will finally get a chance to attack her. But a lot of enemies also just won't last till then, because remember, her role is basically like a early lane holder, so what pioneers should be doing. And because enemies can't really deal that much damage to her, and it's usually like weaker enemies that are charging towards the goal, the blue gate, which means that in most situations she should be able to just get rid of all the enemies and then just hold the lane perfectly fine. The only issue with this skill is that Vulpisfoglia is a pioneer. That is the biggest issue. The fact that we have so many other operators where if you just generate a bunch of DP, you will just plot down operators like, you know, Wizardel, Logos, Renar, or like Opianus, all those operators. We have so many good operators nowadays that I feel like having a early lane holder, like this name suggests, they're only good for early game, and then the moment you have some elites coming towards you, she will not be able to tank them, because look at this skill. It doesn't really increase her defense. So at the end of the day, she will only have 380 defense. And that is just not enough for her to tank a lot of the enemies, especially if she now tanks 3 enemies with this skill activated. She most likely won't survive like 1 or 2 hits when her stun isn't activated frequently enough to stop all their attacks. And that's when like she will just go down. Whereas other operators like Ines, first of all, you know, you have the control, you have quicker redeploy time as well, so you can shift her to other positions easier. Better, I would say better DP regeneration mechanic wise, because as you can see, this skill takes 28 seconds to cycle, and for 28 seconds you only get 9 DP. So that really isn't that much. Especially like the first skill activation, you kind of need 8 seconds to generate her first to get her first skill to activate. By the time with other operators like Cantabile, you already have more than 8 DP generated. And she's also more costlier to deploy, and you kind of want to wait for enemies to get into her skill 3 range before you activate the skill, so you get the most out of her damage and her stun. So even though on paper this skill looks like a really good skill and fits really well with the her talents, and it feels like she's really usable, and I wouldn't argue that she's not. She is still very usable, especially if you don't have operators like, I don't know, if you don't have a lot of flag bearers, you don't have bagpipe, and you don't have Ines, especially Ines, and you can still use Cantabile with her. That's perfectly fine as well. If you're a newer player, I think she will be a great addition to your team. But for those of us who's already has all these other Vanguards built, I don't think she's really worth for us to pull, and you probably won't be using her in the long run. So pull her if you really like her. I won't stop you, but personally I just can't recommend for you to pull her, to use your pulls on her, because we have quite a few important banners still coming our way, so, and speeding up as well. So yeah, that's just how it is. So let's talk about her actual use case though. So again, as a beginner, I can still highly recommend you to get her, because having a good Vanguard to start the game off is really important in my opinion. No matter how the game changes, DP regeneration is still the most key factor. Obviously, if you're going to get Myrtle, you can just Myrtle your way through. But if you want someone that can hold the lane earlier, like especially once you get her skill 3, so once you to her, I think she'll be pretty decent. Even at skill level 7, you don't really need to rush to M3, and you don't really need her module as well. So I think she'll be fine if you're like, you want to get a early like E2 Vanguard. She's a pretty decent choice. And then once you get to like normal events, yeah, I really wouldn't consider her. I would just go with Ines. Then CC, again, I really think that her biggest issue is in CC, you'll have situations where you have minus 75% DP regeneration. At that point, she's not really that good for that. And you also might be getting minus decreased SP regen or increased SP like required. In those situations, agents are just a better type of operators to Vanguard to use compared to Pioneers. I wouldn't recommend her for CC, to be honest. In IS, I still also can't recommend her, because as we're going to get IS 5 buff, especially with like a new collectible, which I will have to talk about on a later date, because it completely changes how we play IS 5 basically. Yeah, she doesn't really work well with the new strategy. I'll have to explain that later down the road, because we haven't seen the mode yet, so I have to explain that later. But you just have to trust me for that. She kind of takes away the advantage of a new strategy, basically. I wouldn't recommend her for IS. In RA and SSS, especially SSS, you can just use her as your normal Pioneer. I think she's fine. The only issue with that is that if you're using her trying to generate DP, and then you're in a stage where like perhaps you're trying to place a Vanguard where they can't really hit enemies, you can't use her skill 1, you'll be using her skill 3, and you have to put her in the front instead of like not really at the back of the lane as well, so you have to work around that. But I think she'll work just fine if you're playing manually. personally, I prefer AFK strategies with my ground operators, so I really wouldn't consider her, to be honest, because I don't want to be like, oh, using all the skills all the time. So that's about it for her, and let's move on to our next operator. Next up, we have Lappland the Decadenza, which is our limited operator for this banner, and obviously our long-awaited Lappland Altar. Oh my god, we've been waiting for this for so long. So Lappland Altar is a mech caster, so the other one that you guys would come up with would be Golden Glow, and she kind of works similarly to Golden Glow in like most of her use cases, but we'll have to talk a bit more about her because of the way her skill 3 works. So that is quite a bit different when it comes to how it tracks enemy and whatnot compared to Golden Glow. So we'll talk about that later. But first of all, let's take a look at her talent. So talent 1 is that for every 20 seconds Lappland Altar stays on the field, her drone will gain buffs. So the first buff is that the maximum damage limit, because of how the way the drone initially deals a certain amount of attack on the first hit and then it gradually increases to 110%, while this increases that upper limit by another 10%. Another 20 seconds later, whenever she her drones deals damage to enemies, they will silent them for 2 seconds. So this is referring back to Lappland using silent, so that's that. And then another 20 seconds later, she will gain 1 more drone. So at the beginning of this stage, we'll only have 1 drone, well, 1 summon. Can I even call it a drone? It's a wolf, basically. It's a wolf head, the thing is that you're seeing surrounding her. So you'll get +1 after 60 seconds, or if you have her at potential 6, actually, that will go down by 4 seconds each stage. So compared to 60, like instead of 60 seconds, it will actually go down to 48 seconds, which is actually very powerful if you ask me. And by the end of that, even if it's during skill duration, so let's say if you're during skill 3 activation, by the end of 48 seconds after she's been summoned, and then it's within skill 3 duration, it will still increase 1 extra wolf being summoned. So that is really interesting and actually kind of a key talent for Lappland, because her second talent is that whenever she's in the team, all Syracuse operators will get +5 initial SP. Now with potential 3, if I recall correctly, that will go up to 6, just like what I have. And then with module, the first time they activate their skill, they will increase their attack speed by 10 permanently until, like, let's say if you remove Lappland from the field and then you deploy her, you'll have to trigger the skill again to activate this 10 attack speed buff. So my issue, yes, and I have an issue, is the second talent. Because the thing about this is that, first of all, we don't have that many good Syracusan operators that we want to buff with this talent, so initial SP. The second issue I have with this talent is that, and it's a little bit of a spoilers, but if you take a look at her skills, you will see that all of her skills has really low initial SP. I wonder why. Oh, because they moved those initial SP out of her skill and added it to her talent. Yay! Like, can you tell how infuriating? Like, the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, does that mean I can just put her down and then immediately activate her skill? That sounds pretty good, even though you don't really get the old, like the boss from the first talent, but at least you can activate her skill earlier. So that's fine, right? No. Because let's say, as an example, as you can see, skill 3 M3, it will take 16 seconds to charge. Now with potentials 3, you make it now 10 seconds. Is 10 seconds really good though? Not really, is it? So that is my biggest issue with this talent. It's just, I feel like they're just being lazy and they just removed her initial SP out of her skills and just boop, put it in her talent and be like, there, job done. So that is Lappland Alter's talent and her base kit. Next, let's take a look at her skills. So skill 1. The passive effect of skill 1 is that she will gain 1 extra wolf. So pair that with the initial wolf that she has, and then first talent after 60 seconds or 48 seconds, if you have pot 6, she will get a total of 3 wolves. Now, after you trigger the skill, it's like a change of state thing. So you kind of think of mountain skill 2, where if you activate the skill, it's actually changing how they behave, and then for like forever, basically, until you change it back. So she will gain plus up to 35% attack, and she will release her wolf to lock onto random enemies that are on the field that are not moving. So when the enemy starts moving or when they die, then she will search randomly for a random enemy again. This skill on paper sounds really good, because a lot of the times you'll see a lot of enemies just standing there at the start of the stage, and you can just drop her and then let her lock onto them. Right? No, because the issue is it's random. Yay! So let's say, as an example, you have 5 enemies at the start of the stage, and you would be like, wow, I can just focus on one of them and just kill one at a time. But nope, because it is completely random. She might be just find 2 out of those 5 and just start attacking them, and then 60 seconds later you'll get another one, but you get 2 wolves attacking 2 different targets at the same time and doing absolutely no damage, because wolves individually don't do that much damage. Or you have situations where, wow, you finally killed one enemy, or you're locking onto an enemy, but they moved. So you'll have to cancel the lock on and then go to another enemy and then start at a lower attack, because remember, the key thing about mech caster is that initially their drones, the summons, their wolves in this situation, start at a lower attack, like base attack rate, and then it gradually grows up to 110%. So whenever enemy moves, that's cancelled. That's the 2 big issues with this skill. Oh, by the way, there's a third situation. You guys know those stages where if there will be like devices on the stage where you can attack them to get over to obtain the devices or break them? A lot of the times your wolves will just lock onto them, and then because you can just keep attacking those devices forever, the wolves will just be stuck there, and then you have to cancel the skill, reactivate the skill, and then gamble away and hope that your wolves doesn't get stuck on one of those devices. Very smart skill. Would not recommend anyone to M3. Next skill. Next up, we have skill 2. So upon activating skill 2, she will gain 3 more drones. She'll have increased attack area. So you can think of Golden Glow skill 2. It is the exact same area. She'll have up to plus 120% attack, and she will release the wolves to lock onto random enemies within her attack area. So it's not like, oh, it's the closest one towards the blue gate. It's not like that. It's random. And whenever the wolves are attacking, there's a 10% chance for them to fear the enemy for 1 second. So you can, if you don't know about the fear mechanic, you can go back to my nymph video. You can get a better understanding. But basically, you can control enemies to stay within her attack area if you don't have operators to block them, and you will just keep the enemies within the area for a longer period of time. So that's, in that sense, it's pretty good. Now you might be asking, why haven't you M3 this skill? I forgot to. I use this skill a lot in IS3, so I don't know why I haven't M3 this skill. I should have done that a billion years ago. So if you ask me, I would highly recommend this skill to M3 if you are an IS3 player. Because even though on paper this skill looks really nice, right? You get 5 drones in total, you'll have increased attack, and you can lock onto one enemy and then just let them walk around, so you don't even have to worry about tanking them. It kind of gets outperformed by her skill 3 in majority of situations, It's just that the good thing about skill 2 is you have a certain locked area, unlike skill 3, which is skill 3 is similar to Golden Glow skill 3, where it's like a whole field kind of a attack thingy, while skill 2 is a lock in range, and sometimes that is beneficial. If you're an IS5 player, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Breaking those boxes is something that you don't want to do. And yeah, other than that, for normal players, if you're just doing your event normally, stick with skill 3. You don't have to bother with skill 2. It's just us IS players, you probably should M3 your skill 2. Unlike me, I don't know why I haven't done it. So that's skill 2. Now, the true star of the show, skill 3. Upon activating skill 3, she will gain herself 2 more wolves. She will have increased up to 80% attack, and she will release her drones to the field and let them chase enemies. Now, the wolves, you'll get up to 4 wolves at maximum, and they individually will spawn from a different position. So let's say if you spawn 4, one will be like top, down, left, right, basically, of Lappland altar, and then they will chase after enemies that are closest to them. So first of all, unlike Golden Glow, where Golden Glow skill 3 will basically aim for the enemy that is closest to the blue gate, in this situation, the wolves chase after targets that are the closest to the wolves themselves, and that takes time for the wolves to move as well. Now, when the wolves reaches an enemy, they will fear the enemy for 3 seconds and lock onto them, right? And you can actually tell enemies are locked on by a sign above their head. Whenever they're locked on, you can actually tell that. Now, enemies that are near the wolf, or enemies that have been locked on by the wolves, will have minus 50% movement speed, and they will take 120% of their attack as arts damage over time. Now, once the enemy dies, the wolf will reappear within a 1.3 radius or 1.5 radius of the dead enemy, and then pop out and then circle around in a small circle, and then look for the next enemy if there is an enemy that they can lock onto. If there is no enemy, they will just circle around at the same place. Now, once the skill is over, they will return to her. So let's talk about the skill, because obviously there's quite a few differences between this and Golden Glow skill 3. First is the way that they target enemies. So that I've already explained. The second thing is that Golden Glow skill 3 has a lower cooldown and a lower duration. So the good thing about Golden Glow is that even though it has like way less damage in total, you'll have explosion damage that is damage like true AoE compared to this skill, which is only damage over time. This skill has a 94-second cycle, so activates for 40 seconds and then 54 seconds for cooldown, whereas Golden Glow has a 65-second cycle. So you can activate Golden Glow skill more frequently and more freely because you know that it will be back really soon, whereas with Lappland skill 3, you have to wait for 54 seconds for this skill to come back. So what I would really recommend for Lappland is you either bring operators like Shu for her talent form Season Foretold. You can use operators like Rosmontis. No, wait, not Rosmontis. Mostima. Sorry about that. Mostima with module, so giving her more SP region, or you can use Telopsis. So some sort of SP region strategy, mechanic, to help her to bring her skill back up ASAP. Obviously, this can be solved in IS more easily because there will be a new strategy surrounding a new collectible that I can't really explain to you guys because it's going to be really long, so I will have to explain it in another video. But basically, you will be able to get a lot of good collectibles for them really easily, if that's all you need to know. So you can get like this book where whenever they attack, caster attacks an enemy, you'll get 2 SP per second. You'll get that really easily. So that solves the SP problem. So where I would recommend you to use her is, personally, I would bring Shu and the Nian siblings squad for the squad buff, and then bring her with skill 3, that will deal with most daily content for you. And once the skill is activated, she basically just destroys everything, because like the total damage of the 4 wolves is insane. I think it's like over 150k total damage from her skill 3 alone, and you don't even need that to be pot 6, because mine is in pot 6, and it just completely annihilates everything. So her skill 3 is really good when it comes to day-to-day use. And I would say, like I said in IS, the IS part, basically you'll bring her and Golden Glow, and the 2 mech casters will just annihilate everything on the entire field once you get the easy, like get the collectibles, which is really easy to get, by the way. So you'll just be like, oh, skill I can activate, click, 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 and you win. That's basically how they work in IS5. And then when it comes to RA, I think the fact that it is a whole like entire field search, especially in stages like RA where the stage can be really big, I think it's really beneficial, and her really high damage also aids with that a lot in RA. So I think she's a good pick in RA once you know your map though, because you kind of don't want them to lock on to like resources like a rock and just be attacking the rock. You kind of want them to target like the target that you actually want them to hit, obviously. So you have to unveil the map for the specific damage, the target that you want to damage. So you should probably know your RA before you actually deploy her skill 3. Now when it comes to SSS though, I would say that you can use her just like Golden Glow. So Golden Glow skill 3, where you can just stack some casters and then stack some attack speed for her, which helps with her attack speed and then helps with her SP regen. Because like I said, once you get the SP regen up, it's really good. And she does do a lot more damage compared to Golden Glow. Just remember that if you don't have a lot of SP and you already deploy her, you might have issues with like getting her SP regen up and then getting her skills activated. Whereas Golden Glow, you know, you can activate her more freely at the same amount of SP regen that you have given them. So just remember that and make sure you give them enough SP regions. I really wouldn't recommend her for AFK strategy, because like I said, skill 1 isn't that well. So if you want to do AFK strat, I would still stick with Golden Glow for that, but that's just it. Oh, and I forgot to add one more thing. When it comes to IS, I will have to remind you that the wolves takes time to travel, and that is not increased by attack speed, whereas Golden Glow can fully benefit from attack speed buff. So just keep that in mind and know that once you get like the best run ever, I think Golden Glow is still the kind of superior choice, because you don't have to wait for the wolves to travel around to find the next enemy. So in that sense, I still prefer Golden Glow. It's just that why not both? You know, they're both really good. Just keep that in mind. So if you have a really good run and you're like, oh, let's say you're not playing the special strategy and like, oh, I got a really good run, stick with Golden Glow first, and then Lappland, I would say, will come second. So that would be her skill 3 and the most of her use cases. Not gonna lie, after going through all that, I do feel like this is a really hard banner, because even though I told you guys I wouldn't recommend pulling Vulpisfoglia, I really like her personally, and it really hurts me to say that I wouldn't recommend you guys to pull her. I really like the design, and it's just, you know, Suzlan's mom as well telling me not to pull for that. It's really difficult as well, but at the end of the day, I gotta say what I gotta say, and that's just how it is. So hopefully with this video, you guys have made up your mind if you want to pull this banner or not, and who you want to pull for. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you want to what you think about this banner, and perhaps we can talk about the whole speeding things up a tiny little bit down below as well, because I want to hear from you guys what you guys think about it. I have seen a bit of a discussion around that topic. I just don't want to take a side, because, you know, I am on the side of my viewers. So I really want to know what you guys think, and I don't want to be on the side of just me or the company, because You know, I want you guys to have the most fun of the game, but I also want to know, like, is the gap really that big of a deal? Because we don't do we really need 6 months of gap though? I guess that's my biggest question with this topic is, do we really need 6 months? Is 1 month not good enough? I think 1 month is good enough, because most of the like conclusions I have about these operators, I've basically made up my mind in like the first 3 days I got them, to be honest. I'm gonna be really honest with you. Like, I have to rethink back to my old opinions on them, especially with Vulpisfoglia, because I basically never use her. So I'd be like, oh, what did I feel about her 6 months ago? Ah, right. I was thinking this. I tried her in these stages and it didn't really work well. Right. And if we have less cap for that, to be honest, it will make my life a lot easier, because like, even if we completely catch up, I'll spam a video out like within 2 days, and you guys can just watch that video and decide if you want to pull or not anyway. So like, I guess it's not that big of a deal for my viewers if you guys really believe what I say, but that's just me. So hope to hear from you guys about that, and I'll see you guys on the pool video. Bye.